We are live. Hi, Dana. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Broadening the Student Mental Health Conversation. I'm Trish Keiller, here with my amazing colleague, Dana.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Bagdasarian, Trish Keiller's colleague.
We are so excited just to spend a few minutes here on LinkedIn, broadening the conversation around student mental health. So, whether you're looking at statistics or you're having a felt experience, we certainly all know the cadence of the mental distress, the emotional overwhelm, confusion, frustration in this deep time of evolution, of some uncertainty. And so the experiences that all of us and our adolescents especially sort of carry during this time, we wanted to take some time to broaden the conversation, really to expand from understanding and knowing that it's happening to some action and some of the practices and tools that Dan and I are really excited to share with you, and also here really as learners to hear more from you also as well.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. That's a wonderful introduction of our goal, some of our goals here. Student mental health is very close to both of our hearts. We both have school age children. And, I was a high school teacher for many years. Trish was a middle school teacher. We've been in the classrooms. She works in schools. I work in schools now. And we just are looking to help support our little guys, is really, in the end, kind of our passion, our shared passion here. And, these statistics that I know we both popped in our LinkedIn post. Statistics are they're both helpful and concerning at times, aren't they, Trish?
Sure. Yeah. And
And
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Dana.
please.
Just like we rehearsed it, right? Right.
So,
Um,
I just think that the reason why we chose the topic of broadening the conversation is because we want to make sure that student mental health in the schools and other options for them is evolving just like society is evolving so much as the scope widens of what's available, what tools there are. That ought to be available to our kiddos in school as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the encouraging news and statistics also is that the focus on social emotional learning and mental health and wellness, mental fitness, the needle is trending in the right direction, and students are getting some tools, and our intention is to accelerate how many students have access to them and to support our teachers and our leaders in not only knowing the tools but also having and embodying them for themselves, because until I really went on this journey 20 plus years ago, I didn't know these tools. There was like a different skill set, and there's an opportunity for our students to learn a new skill set and new mindsets to deal with the new world that's really being created in front of us right now in real time.
Well, and the thing that we really do know for certain is that mental health is a learning, it's part of the learning tools. In other words, if you're not in a good headspace or you're not able to be fully present, you're simply not learning as an adult, as a student. And you know, it being viewed as sort of a separate thing that gets addressed maybe once a month or a couple of weeks out of the year isn't necessarily, that's not what's moving the needle, as Trish alluded to, right? What our goal is to help just have it be something that is part of their day to day, the teachers, the staff, the kiddos, and have realistic tools that don't add yet another item on the list of what to do.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah, I love how you sort of brought that part together, because I think in Dana and I sort of joining forces to collaborate in some experiences, doing some of these lives and sharing tools through student assemblies with our middle school and high school students. Really, the goal as both teachers and then in the health and wellness space was to be part of the bridge so that so that our emotional health and our wellness and health initiatives and nutrition and even student lunches don't live necessarily in separate places from the academic arena of our maths and sciences and literacy, that there's really the connection, so that taking mental health, yes, there's emotional experience, but they're also really the conditions for learning. We've spent a lot of time talking about resilience, really, I would guess since really the pandemic, and how do we build that? And now those are the conditions for learning. And in the next, lives over the next few months, we'll go a little bit deeper into that. But essentially, this is about how do we create the internal environment for learning, as well as supporting the external environment for not only learning, but also for teaching and leading, because all of us are carrying what can feel like heavy, full weights, and at the same time, feeling the sole desire to really support, so that our students and our teachers and our leaders can thrive collectively at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. I think we all know that when we start our day with the routines that feel good for for adults, just speaking to adults for a moment, we know that when you get enough sleep and you're hydrated and you stretch your body, you move enough, all of these things, we all are starting to learn really which routines are the most important. And when you miss something in that routine, it does change your ability to experience your day. Well, kids are no different, of course, and they need to be empowered to know what works for them. Uh, and having some options for them that they will be able to experiment. I mean, life is really just one big experiment, isn't it, Trish?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're experimenting right now with our
We are
LinkedIn Live, aren't
experimenting.
we?
Well, and I think underneath all of it is our desire for control and certainty. And so in this, sometimes called like VUCA time period, where we don't have those things, there's a clinging and then a desire for more control. And that in turn then can create some anxiety. So our desire, and we're going to get into a couple practices in just a minute, is to really start thinking through what are the practices that enable us to stay in that. And whether you call that being able to stay in discomfort or being able to stay in the tension field, or however you want to frame that, there are practices that come really through the body. And I think that's the experience and some of the deeper distinctions in our learning, separately and now collectively, to bring something new to the table, so that there's practices that are not happening separately or just in a like a time in sort of corner or calm space, but that the tools are rooted in creating the calm from the inside out, so we always have access to them and can stay in what I like to really think about as that are big moments, right? Of like when the stress is rising, whether that's taking a penalty kick or standing on a stage about to give a presentation or a dance.
Yeah.
We're prepared for that. And so giving ourselves permission to use the body also and the mind to support us to stay in what can maybe feel sensory discomfort.
Yeah. Well, and are you familiar with the term interoception?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And that feeling of being aware of what's going on in your body. And this interoception is such a fascinating thing that is so helpful for every human, because we all have a different experience in our own body. And that experience is either one that we need to get more in touch with, or we need to manage it so that it doesn't, so that we recognize our body's signals, right? And so I just, wanted to point that out, that what you're referring to, and having these tools that are just at your fingertips and not a separate thing. One of these tools is literally listening to body signals. Some people are naturally more used to that. Athletes certainly tend to get in tune with their body real quick.
Yeah.
And musicians certainly get, but maybe just something as simple as listening to some of these signals that you need what routines, what things in the classroom. If you're a teacher, you get the energy of your room, and you're sort of taking the temperature of your classroom at all times and making sure that everything is going smoothly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think this is a good time to share. I think I'll share a metaphor right now in one of the ways. So, Dana, and let me back up for 1 second. I'll do a quick intro so we're clear on how our roles are different, and then also why we sort of join this collaborative. So my work is specifically supporting professional development and coaching in our schools with our leaders in the work of brain-body literacy, which is really a framework for how to include the body in all of the learning conversations. So we're equipped to manage our stress, to stay in a growth mindset, to support ourselves in being resilient. So that's the work that I do. And with my background and experience as a teacher, and then also as a yoga teacher and a mindfulness instructor and an NLP practitioner, these tools rooted to give us access to so many different things, because not all of the tools will work for all of us, and not all of the tools work for me during all seasons. So they're shifting. So we just want to have options or tool belts. So that's my experience. And Dan, I'll have you sort of distinguish what your work is before we go into the metaphor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes. Well, I was a high school social studies teacher for almost a decade in LAUSD, and I had a business selling educational software, still used today, still being sold worldwide, social studies curriculum. And I am also a hypnotherapist, EFT practitioner, mental welfare coach, NLP as well, doing some breathing and sound frequency stuff. And basically, I am helping people make sure that their unconscious mind is helping guide them towards the goals they truly want. And I like to work with kids and adults and groups and corporate and schools. And Trish, you and I, when we met, it was just like, whoa, this is somebody who is really adding so much value to the conversation of mental welfare. How can we get together, right?
Yeah. And let's be clear, we're both get lonely working as solopreneurs here. And so Dana was really the first person that there was so much alignment in energy and desire and passion, experience, and the way that sort of we envision the work, that it was refreshing to meet you and get to really start this collaborative. So
well, who wouldn't want to collaborate with you? I mean, you're like positive.
Anybody out there? Anybody?
Positive.
It can get lonely
skills.
outside of the school for sure when you shift. So let me bring you into a metaphor that I like to use a lot that I think is helpful. And when and Dana and I both sort of share this philosophy, she's speaking a little bit more to like mind and subconscious. I'm speaking a little bit more to the body side. But the metaphor really is to think about a gardener. And the gardener does a lot of things to support the growth, but the gardener doesn't do the growth. So for example, the gardener is ensuring that there's enough light and sun, that there's water and hydration, that there's nutrients and fertilizer, that there's pruning of the garden, right? To check out like where are the weeds growing. And then the gardener trusts and waits as the life force grows and the trees, plants, garden, right, is able to flourish. And there's a deep trusting of the life force that's happening. And our bodies are the same. Essentially, they're the same. So we need water, staying hydrated, fertilizers, really like our nutrient dense foods, right? Making sure that we're getting our vitamins and our minerals, getting some sunlight. We know the impact of being outside in nature and how supportive that is for our nervous system and our well-being. Pruning really is taking on our thoughts and noticing like which negative thoughts or which thoughts are really disempowering me in that moment. And then really letting go and trusting that the body is going to metabolize life for us. It's easy to think about that when we go to sleep. Matthew Walker talks about, sleep being a soothing balm for our emotions. I'm sure I'm not alone, that, I'm having a conversation or, argument with my husband, and it feels so big that night. And then in the morning, it feels totally different. And it's like it was able to metabolize. And so, this notion of really trusting and including the body is my message, including the body in the school, in the conversation, in more of a way to normalize what it feels like when we're anxious. So if you're asking students, just one quick example, Dana, and then I'll pass it back.
No, I love
You're
it.
asking students to come up and do a presentation in front of the class. That's a big moment. That's a big moment. And the body does its job to get us ready for big moments. I mean, it is here as our supporter in keeping us going and helping us to thrive. So to keep us going, there's more adrenaline and there's more cortisol and there's a faster heart rate, right? So that the body can help get focused, because the last thing that we want to do is mess up and be embarrassed, right? And so when we normalize that for students, say, hey, if you're feeling a increased heart rate, yes, thank you, body, you're getting me ready. When you feel your cheeks getting a little bit flushed. So when we start to change the conversation to normalizing, like Dana was saying, what's the normal sensory experience that I know? What does frustration feel like inside of me? Cringly, or what's the speed inside of you? When we normalize that, we just create a lot more freedom and acknowledgement. Being human is, it's not for the weak and weary people,
No,
right?
no,
What
it's
a
not.
blessing that we were able to get, this evolution, that we're here in this human body, and to know the tools that really help us to be able to work with it. So I always love to just remind, you're not doing the growing, but you're doing the nurturing, the seeding, the resting back, the allowing, that your body, then your immune system, digesting, beating your heart, all of those things, we get to rest back a little bit and trust and allow the growing and the learning process.
That's right. And the garden is such a beautiful metaphor for so many reasons. Um, all of the research that you do to design the garden is all of this time that you've put in for the success, right? If you back to your presentation, right? If you're giving a presentation, you put in all those hours of studying and practicing and picking out what you're going to wear, and do you have visual aids? Do you have? I mean, you think about that.
Yeah.
That's the same with the garden. You have to choose complementary crops or plants. There's so many factors. Like you said, the amount of sunlight. Some crops really need to be in the sun,
Yep.
and what I wanted to point out is that if you plant something in an area where it's not going to thrive, what do? You just dig it up and you scooch it.
Yep.
It's not,
Mm.
I hate to say that some plants have been lost over the years by people who haven't. Sorry for those plants, but what's the worst case scenario in a garden is that you gambled, and it doesn't work, and so then you try again.
Yeah.
It's not like a garden is something that's a one and done. It's, as you know, there's different crops for different seasons. There's different purposes. Is the garden for food? Is it for beauty? Is it for herbs? Is it medicinal? It's the same with our bodies. What do we need our bodies and our minds to do in that moment? And it's seasonal also. I mean, if you are an athlete, you play a certain sport this season, another sport this season. If you're in high school, you're studying for an AP exam that's in
Baby, I
May,
never showed you that
right?
photo of
And
the
there's
kitten
just
following me outside the grocery store. Just text
different
her, Mom.
needs
The
at
boys
different
already in. No,
seasons.
baby,
In the
just take a
winter,
second.
those people who live in heavy winter climates really have to work hard to get that vitamin D from the sun, that sunlight. It just becomes a much more, just like with the garden, and you have to be real deliberate and maintain it. And sometimes the garden just goes, and you don't have to do much. Just like sometimes in life, we are in the zone, we're in the flow,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
things just go.
Yeah.
But what is it that made those moments easy, and what is it that students in schools need to make that easy? Well, that's why we have designed this assembly to come to schools that are already doing so much to help kids. They just want the kids to succeed. Everybody at the school, that's their goal. That's why they want to work with kids, and yet they're exhausted at times with all of the requirements. So to have people come in who are in this industry and want to help the kids and offer different levels of support along the way, that's what we're, that's kind of the goal here, is to provide support.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's reminding me, and a lot of you in the schools and doing the work are familiar with Castle's and the social emotional learning framework and the competencies. And so just as a quick example, if we take self-awareness as one of the competencies, the things that Dan is referring to and we're talking about is this intuiting of like what's the experience inside of the body, and what does that look like then in a school? So for example, our advocacy is really for daily practices that invite students just to even notice that. And there's obviously so much there with why the practices are important, and the neural pathways and the myelin and the brain, but the daily practices are what then help to make that the way that we do life. So a breathing exercise is great in a moment of stress. A breathing exercise is great as just a tool to know this is a way that we can get ourselves ready and set and focused, and getting some more energy and waking ourselves up, so that then when we're in a big moment and there's more stress, that's the default network of like how we do things. So even when we're talking about practices, I just want to give like a clear example. It's not about a new program. It's not about a new curriculum. It's about a 30-second practice of a pause that's happened repeatedly. So it becomes the way students and teachers can experience things. And that might just be take a moment to check in, not with necessarily how are you feeling? Because I think sometimes we unintentionally then put students back in their head and they're looking for like the feeling word, the emotional word that describes it, where a lot of our experiences are just sensory. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling, I don't even know, it's hot inside, it's fast, it's flushed, I don't know what the word is. So there's almost like a both. We can teach the vocabulary, but we also want to keep students in their bodies and asking, what are you noticing right now? How's your heart? Is it slow or is it fast? Is it warm or is it cold, right? And so we can play in various spaces just to check in, and then give let's take 3 deep breaths experience and see if that changes anything. So one thing, Dana, and then I'll head back to you, that I've noticed in schools is more and more work around this, how are you feeling today and what's the feeling, and going through and students like sharing that and then leaving them hanging. So the acknowledgement is part of it, but then like, what do I do with that? So here's a movement exercise, here's a reframe, here's an affirmation, here's some tactile experiences, right? That we could talk more about that shift the focus. But the intention is repeated practices, so they have access to those tools in all moments.
Yeah, that's right. And the more, we all know that the more you do something, the easier it becomes. When you learn to ride a bike as a child, most of us have had that experience. And so just to lean into that memory for a moment, remember that first time that you were on the bike and you were holding the handlebars, and hopefully you were lucky enough that your feet touched the ground on your bike so that you could get a balance. And just that feeling of, whoa, if you took your feet off the ground, both of them at once, and the bike would fall over, and you do that, and maybe you have somebody holding the back of the bike for you to help you kind of get your bearings and all. But if you just think about all of the concentration it took, all of the trial and error, of the frustrations, the victories, all in to that first moment where you got to ride away by yourself, and that feeling of, wow, I did it. And it was all that practice that led to that confidence. And now, no matter how many years it's been, you never forget how to ride a bike. And that is what we are ultimately suggesting here, is that if we teach students some skills that become practiced over and over again, then when they're in that real moment and there's nobody there helping them, maybe they're at home alone going through a tough moment, they would have some tools to rely upon. Trish, you were saying that sometimes their feelings get discussed and then they're sort of left hanging with those feelings. And the thing about school is that, of course, if you're in a science class, for example, the purpose of the class is to learn the curriculum.
Yeah.
And while your feelings, of course, if a teacher wants to acknowledge, oh, I can see my students having a tough time, but then the teacher is still tasked to teach the curriculum, not stop and make sure, that kid is okay in that moment, right? Yeah. And so that's why sort of having some of these tools to help the student get through that class to be able to learn and be engaged and stay in that moment so that then they can deal later with what might be going on.
Yeah. And I'll give this quick example. I'm so glad that you brought that up because, yes, this is not about not teaching curriculum, and it's not about just, and sometimes people say, well, we're not doing therapy in schools. And no, it's not about that either. When I started, after I was teaching middle school math and I was teaching yoga to adults, and I started bringing some of the simple practices, breathing, a little bit of stretching into my middle school class. What I noticed was after lunchtime, those of you who work with our middle schoolers, there's often a little line of six to 10 students who are seeking to tell you something or digest something with you or process something. And our intention is always to meet our students' needs. And what I realized was I was spending a lot of time supporting, but then when I chose to add in some of these processes, I said, okay, great. Let's do some of our mindfulness, yoga, whatever, right, the word was in the moment first. And what I realized was that filtered out who really needed support because they were able to meet themselves with what they needed. So whether it was getting calm or getting focused or letting that go, so much of processing. And I hear this from adults too, is wait, I just spent all this time and then you run off on the playground because I really need it. And what we all need is to know, when do I need me, and when, yes, do I need extra support? And I know that our counselors and our school psychologists are overwhelmed with numbers. So some of these practices are that to go, where can you support you in this moment? And then where do you need me? And I'm here 1,000%. We all can also
that's right. I mean, the ultimate goal is to teach self-reliance in general, right? We have students start at a very young age and end school at what is still a young age, but is older, right? At the 18, 19 year mark. But, the goal there is for them to be able to deal with life and make the choices for their next steps. And so what we're suggesting is that by making student mental wellness really a big part of what they are learning throughout those years, also as part of their learning, not as just a separate thing, to show them, hey, when you're regulated and you feel good, you learn more. You're happier with your friends. You're able to participate better as an athlete. All of these things that we began this conversation by talking about a routine in the morning, and that when you check those boxes, you just have a better day.
Yeah.
So if the goal here is to help students just have a better life and get tools also that will help the teachers get through that day-to-day in the classroom, help the kids get through the day-to-day, and help everybody feel just a little bit better.
Yeah. Feeling a little bit better goes a long way.
Yeah, it sure does.
Well, time flies here, Dana.
Yes.
And we are looking forward to coming back in 2 weeks. We'll
2 weeks.
Be jumping in here and sharing, now that we sort of laid some of the groundwork, we'll just be digging into some more of the practices. And we'll be exploring the option of really broadening the conversation and letting people be able to jump in and chat with us as we're figuring out the technology and doing all of the things.
Experimenting.
Take some action.
And it's Trish's birthday in 2 weeks too.
Oh, that's right. So that's
when we meet again, she'll be so much older and mature.
So if you have any questions, if you would like any more information or want to reach out, please either DM myself or Dana. You can find us right on LinkedIn. Thanks for your interest in this
Yes.
topic and for
Yes.
staying the course, so that we can all feel better and really create, like, what are we creating in this world? Because we are the co-creators. So we're excited to empower
That's right.
ourselves, our students, our teachers, and our leaders. And Dana, always love spending time with you. I already am
Yeah.
more jazzed and have a bigger spring in my step.
Yeah. Thank you, Trish, for getting us on here today, and thank you everybody for joining us. We so appreciate it, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.